Freddie Kale Avalos.
Present.
Andy Berg.
Here.
Shane Haggerty. Bartolomena here. Walter Miller.
Present.
Cynthia Ramirez.
Mr. Chairman, she called in first thing this morning and had an emergency, was heading to Albuquerque.
David Stout.
Commissioner Stout called last week and said he had a conflicting meeting for today and would not be able to attend.
He's running for re-election.
Yes. And Jackie York.
Present.
Beautiful. We do have quorum. There's 5 of us. We'll continue with the meeting.
Pledge of Allegiance.
This time, can you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Pledge allegiance to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas.
Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I can never get that one right.
I know.
Oh, great.
You guys late, guys.
Welcome, Commissioner
You
Stout
said you weren't going to be here, so you can't.
and Trustee Shane Haggerty.
Can't be here.
Okay.
So we have more than
I'll have to change my schedule. I'll have to change my schedule real quick.
Okay, at this time, we will continue. Board Chair reports. I took the liberty to assign you guys to the advisory committees. I'm going to be passing these out, and I believe, in accordance to your expertise, that you would do well in these committees. Do you want me to pass them out, or do you want me to read them out loud?
If you could pass them out, I'd like to have something that.
Yeah, I think we better know where everybody else is.
Please. And really quick, these committees are not like committees that we have at the school district for. It's just on, if you're needed, you will be called, for example, for the budget or for the facilities committees. They will call you and get your input to let you know what's going on, basically. You want to elaborate a little bit on that one?
Yes, normally what we do when we're setting the budget is we will meet with the budget committee to go over a preliminary budget and then get any direction that we may get from the budget committee, make any changes before we submit the draft budget at our March board meeting. As to the building, example would have been when we were having the issues with the back parking lot. If we'd had a committee, we could have just met with the committee and gotten a lot of that stuff done preliminarily and not have to do so much of it before the board. So we use them as we need them. Technology, if we were to want to change our computer-assisted mass appraisal system, we would want to meet with the committee first and go over that and maybe have the committee review the different companies that are available and then help us make a recommendation. So we used to have a couple more committees. They dealt with the Appraisal Review Board, and the Board of Directors for appraisal districts no longer have anything to do with the appointments or anything for the Appraisal Review Board. So that's been taken away.
Are you okay with the committees that I assigned you to, or?
So the only thing I'd like to add is that when these committees meet, that we all, I mean, even though we're not assigned to the committee, we might still want to go to a committee meeting.
Sure.
So if you have a building committee meeting, or if you have a budget committee meeting, and Walter wants to go, he ought to know that there's going to be a meeting, and if he wants to come, he can come. So I think my recommendation would just be that a notice be sent to everybody when the committee meets. We expect at least these 2 people to be there, but if other people would like to come as well, we should.
We just have to be careful about quorum.
Yeah, it can't be a quorum.
Well, if you
can
offer
post.
I think if
We
you offer
post.
you offer the invitation to everybody, you have to post.
Really? So
Yes.
just by
Yes.
offering
If you offer the
invitation.
invitation to everybody, you have to post.
So I guess we just leave it at.
And then
two.
you have to give
What's the
public
quorum
comment
for?
and.
We can't selectively, so you just gotta leave it like that. You guys live in a different world.
And you want me to motion that you can be in all the committees?
No, I don't want to be on any of the committees. I just wanted to make sure you could be if you wanted to come.
I'll let
That's
Maybe we can't do
be
that.
all about, on all the
Right,
committees.
likely story.
Okay, guys, so are we kosher with this?
Yes.
All of you guys? Okay?
Sure, yes.
All right, beautiful. Okay. Item number 2, staff recognition. 25 years of service, Dominga M. Espinosa.
Miss Espinosa was not able to attend tonight. Miss Espinosa has been with us for 25 years, has worked in our central records and our phone bank, is one of our top phone people that answer all of those wonderful questions that come through when the notices go out, exemptions come due. She's been with us. She's a great employee. And we wanted to recognize her, even though she is not here. We recognize them in their departments. Myself and their supervisor and David Stone, we go down and we will recognize them in their departments. So I apologize that she was not able to be here at this time. But Ms. Flores.
The next person is Ms. Irma E. Flores in recognition of 30 years of dedicated service. She is here,
Y'all
right?
could get a picture with Ms. Flores. Get it by the flags.
Should we all go?
By the flags.
And I'm in my T-shirt for our event.
Get behind everybody. Ms.
hide.
Flores has been with us for 30 years. She's worked in our phone bank, central records, back when we had a lot of records that were paper records that had to keep track of. And she's been she's currently in our deeds and exemptions department and handles customers over the counter dealing with all the different types of exemptions, home ownership, questions about boundaries. She's just great, and we appreciate her very, very much.
Want the picture right here? Oh, okay, sorry.
Nobody heard a word I said. Irma, thank you. You're welcome. We appreciate everything.
Congratulations again. Yes.
Thank you for your work. Congratulations. We have more?
We have
No,
another?
ma'am, that's it.
That's it, yeah. Beautiful.
Dina, do we have anybody for public comment?
In my hoo-hoo.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody in public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have anybody signed up for public comment.
Number 4, approval and signing of minutes for January 20.
So moved to approve.
Okay, I have a motion. Second. By Mr. Tannyberg and a second by Mr. Avalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 5, discussion and possible action regarding financial audit report 2020 through September 30th, 2021.
Board members, you received this in advance at the beginning of the month, again in your packet that we sent out, and you have a final copy from our auditors. Mr. Rene Pena is here to give the financial audit report. This is done every year, and we present the report to the board in February. Mr. Pena? Thank you.
Y'all. Good to see everybody. Some of you again, appreciate it. No, we always appreciate being able to give this audit report. This is Teresa. She actually did all the work. She's been doing the work for the association for quite a while. And anyway, she's here to make sure I say the right things and give the right guidance. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I don't want to take too much of your time. So what I want to do is kind of summarize this 30-page report that you have in front of you with this one-page report and kind of keep it simple type person. But also, I like to look at trends, and I think by looking at a 5-year summary, and I can hit some of the main points, I can deliver a little bit more information. So on this quote, what I call trend analysis 2017, I think you have the one page in front of you. You look back in 2017, where were we with current assets? We were sitting with $7,247,000, and now we've jumped all the way to $8,700,000. Nice $1.5 million increase in that time. And if you just look between 2020 and 2021, we've increased our current asset position from 7.6 to 8.7, a $1.1 million increase. So the organization is growing, simply stated. And this is within our current asset position. Our total asset position has increased by $2.5 million in this time frame, from 11.73 all the way to $13.575 million again in this time frame. So our current assets, our total assets, I should say, compared to the total liabilities of $8,476,000 allows us to have a net position this year of $5,075,000. And again, compare that to just 5 years ago, up $1.5 million. So a significant increase in a 5-year period, again, showing not the growth of this organization, but the growth of our city, because you are basically a representation of where the city of El Paso is sitting with our taxing jurisdictions. So our net position in this 1-year period grew a whopping $675,000. And if I may say, this is one of the first times that we're actually seeing El Paso's valuations catch up with the rest of the country. You know, we see all these other countries, cities going up 10, 20%. Well, El Paso is there. And I think you all have seen it with your personal residence too. So that is the reason for the major increase from $4.4 million last year by a whopping $675,000 this year to $587,000. How did we get there? Oh, wait, before I go there, back to the current assets. I wanted to mention, so of this current asset increase, $1 million of it is in cash, and the other $1 million increase is due to the pension plan, what's called the deferred outflow of pension plan. And that represents current liability, the offset of current liability for future expenditures. Bottom line is your pension plan caused $1 million of this $2 million change, not quite $2 million change in total current assets. And if you look at your liabilities, you see that the net pension liability also went up significantly from $383,000 all the way up to $1,076,000, a $600,000 increase. And if some of you were here last year, I think you can remember me saying that your pension fund was, I'm going to use the word over-exaggerated. It had a discount rate of 8.2 or 8.3. And we talked about that being pretty high. Well, the state did drop it back down to like 7.3. And by doing that, it's more reasonable now. But it did, as we discussed last year, it did cause a $600,000 increase in your net pension liability. Bottom line is, the actuary is saying, if I look in the crystal ball, I think that in the future, you're going to have a liability of about $1,076,000 on your pension plan above what you have in it right now. Just simply stated. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So the trend there, it looks like 1 year it's high, another year it's low. 1 year it's high, is that, I mean, what is that attributable to?
Well, it's, if you would, I'll ask you to take a look at page 15 of your financial report. And the simple answer is because your actuary fluctuates. The actuary does an analysis every year. And in the previous year, your investment rate of return was all the way up at 8.3. This year, it dropped down. These are the actuarial assumptions. So the actuary has come in and he's saying, I'm changing my mind on how much your investment rate of return is. I'm changing my mind on what your discount rate is. And when he brought those back down to normal, I'll call it, it made my liability increase. And this is what you all have in each of your taxing jurisdiction. When your actuary adjusts your pension expected rate of return, it's going to increase or decrease your liability. If you'll flip over to page 21, I think I can explain it a little bit better. Page 21, your current discount rate is in the middle, and it's saying my pension liability is at 17,793. If I decrease that by $1 million from 7.6% to 6%, my pension liability is going to jump up a whopping close to $3 million. Bigger liability. If I increase my discount rate to 8.6, which is close to what we had last year, then my pension rate would drop all the way by $2 million. So that pension discount rate, which I don't want to say is arbitrary, it's based on analysis of your earnings, of the pension plan earnings. And that's what causes the fluctuation.
Renee, also taking into account is the longevity of your employees.
Correct.
So if we talk about 30 years or 40,
Exactly.
and the older that they get, obviously that's going to affect
Correct.
the discount rate on our pension plan because the older they get, obviously, the more vested they are in the plan.
And the higher the cost
And the higher
comes
the
within the plan
Exactly.
itself.
So the more 30-year, 25-year people you have, the more adjustment you're going to see in the pension plans.
Correct. Does that answer? Thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up because, again, it's a critical factor. And just, correct me, 7 years ago, we didn't even address this. Financial Accounting Standard Boards, left this off on municipalities. Said, you don't have to talk about that pension liability out there. And finally, like I said, 7, 8 years ago, they said, you better put that on there. We can't ignore this animal. Okay? So I did want to get back and say, so that's what's causing this crazy fluctuation. And I'm going to stick my neck out and speculate that I don't think you're going to see that fluctuation that much anymore. If the stock market dives this year, it continues to dive this year, if the stock market has a terrible year, they still do a 5-year averaging. So even if it has a serious drop this year, I wouldn't expect that you're going to have a serious adjustment. Okay, you did need that one-time adjustment because it was overstated. And by the way, now you're in line. If you were to take a look at all the municipalities in the state of Texas, which there is a review, the Pension Review Board puts out, the majority of all the institutions are between 7 and 7.5. Okay, so you were an outlier in the previous year. All right, so all that being said, your net asset position, like I said, in spite of that increased liability, is sitting at 507. How did this happen? Well, look at our revenues this year. That's a 4% increase in a 1-year period, a $623,000 increase from $15,127,000 all the way to $15,750,000. And again, if you take a look back in 2017, where we at 13.3, a nice $2.5 million increase in this very short period. How did that happen? Well, this year, our valuations of the property and the growth of the city, the combination of the two were extremely high this year. Bottom line is the number of houses and the increased value of the houses, as we were saying, finally, El Paso has jumped on the bandwagon of housing increases. Our average houses are costing more. And as a result, the taxing jurisdictions are recognizing that tax increase. So again, about a 4% increase in the overall valuation and growth of the city coming in. The expenditures requiring the taxing jurisdiction funding did go up $370,000 this year. That's the cost of providing these services. And in a quick nutshell, what took up most of that 370? Well, we had the protests. The ARBs were about an additional 88,000. The legal cost was an additional 300,000. The mailing cost was an additional 150,000. So with these, you had more protests, you had more questions coming in, and as a result, our internal costs did go up. And again, if I can digress and say, if you take a look at page, give me a second here, page 27 and 28, specifically page 28, just to summarize it, you all establish a budget. And on page 28 is your budget variance. You're within $368,000 of a $16 million budget. That's 2%. I talk about management following the budget. That's about as close as I'll ever see a government entity do it. I shouldn't say that, but I'll say that. So I'm going to say congratulations. You held within the budget. Very, very close. You can see your revenues were within 36,000. Your expenditures within 332 on a $16 million budget. So staying extremely close on your budget to actual expenditures. And then to point out the other ones, I'm seeing this with a lot of organizations, budget on the salaries of $8 million, and the actual was $319,000 less than what was actually budgeted. So good tight control on budgeted expenditures for salaries. So with all that being said, the amounts due back to the taxing jurisdictions this year, I don't want to use the word only, but I think it's good when we don't owe the taxing jurisdictions that much back, because that means we didn't take more than what we needed, is only $368,000 compared to $1 million in the previous years. And our deferred revenue is sitting at $4.5 million compared to $3 million. Deferred revenue is the taxing jurisdictions' revenues coming in for the next quarter. Bottom line is, that's our report for the audit. We did issue I don't want to call it a management letter, but a management representation letter, in which we said we looked at all the critical areas and we found no exceptions, and we found no areas that we believe we need to bring before the board for policy changes or improvements. Simply stated, ain't broke, don't fix it.
I have
Yes.
one question, and that is, I want to point out that the thing that caused our variance in our budget were the legal fees, which were substantially more than what we expected, almost twice as much. We had budgeted $500,000, we ended up spending almost $1 million.
Right.
So that's what threw your budget off whack. But we have reserves for that from previous years, so that's what took us back. But the board needs to just be focused on the fact that our legal fees are what took us out.
And going to continue.
Right? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's complete.
Yes, that's why the board agreed to setting up the
No, it's all right.
encumbered,
It's
yeah.
okay. I just
So
think
help
we
us
need to
out.
point that out.
Any other questions?
Well, there was one other area that I did want to touch, if there's no question on the numbers. Over on page 26, I won't bore you with all of this, but we accountants like to make changes just like the tax people do. So we came out with a boatload of new GASB, Government Accepted Standard Board. And I just wanted to point out to you, especially some of you all of you in the government industry, many of these will be affecting you in the future years. But for this organization, there's really only one that's going to affect this organization. That's our accounting standards coming out with new guidelines on leases. Forgive me, I think it's silly as heck why they're doing this, but at any rate, so in the current year that we're living in, the financial statements for September of 2022 will be reflecting the changes as a result of leases. And all it's going to do, it's not going to affect your P&L, your revenues and expenditures. It's only going to have us put an asset on the books for all the leases that you have that are normally operating leases that aren't on the books. And it's going to make us put in offsetting liabilities for the future costs of those leases. I think it's just making a bunch of bookkeeping work, but that's what the guidelines tell us to do. The other ones basically don't affect you, we think, in any way, shape, or form. There's one other one that's coming out in 2023 relative to IT, but I don't think that's going to affect y'all. We'll check into that.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Okay. So this is an action item. If there's no other questions, I do need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second. Okay, motion, who made the motion? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Avalos and a second by Mr. Sean Haggerty. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Okay, next
you.
item. Thank you so
I
much.
think I'm up on the next one, too.
You are the next one, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Discussion and possible action regarding the El Paso Central Appraisal District investment policy. Go ahead.
As part of the audit function, we also look at your investment policy, which you established several years ago in order to put to use some of the funds that we had once we advised that, hey, let's do a cash flow analysis. Some months I have a whole lot of cash, other months I'm down very low. And so you did establish an investment policy, and so we do review that and make sure that you're within the investment policy. It's very conservative because your fluctuations are very significant. And so we just want to report that the management did stay within the investment policy, which basically calls for most of the funds to be in money markets. But it does generate a few $1,000s a year. And that's the short report on that.
Beautiful. Any questions on that? Need a motion, please.
Motion to approve?
There's a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Freddie Avalos and a second from Ms. Jackie York, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7, discussion and possible action regarding the Agriculture Advisory Board.
Board members, thank you so much. The Agriculture Advisory Board is required under the Property Tax Code, under Section 6.12. The Chief Appraiser appoints the Agriculture Advisory Board based on ranchers and farmers within the community. But we do bring it to the Board of Directors to review and for their approval. So I have a recommendation. I've given you last year's information so that you could just look at and see what the Agricultural Board works with our residential ag department on gathering all of this data. This report that we have is required by the MAPS review from the State Comptroller's Office. You can see we also, not only do we have the price per acreage for the different types of categories, we also have to have an intensity schedule table that the Ag Board helps us put together. They usually meet in March. They meet here. John Spence is currently the chair. He deals with row crop and pecans. Bill Thomas is the vice chair currently. They'll elect officers when they meet in March. Row crop and pecans. Leanne Lovelady is the secretary. Again, row crop and pecans. Lorenzo Ceballos is bees and pecans. Greg Ivy is currently on, and he is leaving. And Jim Ivy is agreed to replace him and be back on. So having a Lovelady and an Ivy on our board is, I mean, that's the biggest farmers here. We used to have Keith Deputy from the Upper Valley was on our board, but it was just, he had too many other things going on, and he served for quite a while. So I'm recommending that we keep the board existing, letting Greg Ivy resign and replacing him with Jim Ivy. Requirements are they must be in agriculture. So it couldn't be like one of us could be on the ag board, but they have to actually be producing some crop. They have to, or cattle, or, you know, they have to have an agricultural business. So these are the awesome Mr. Spence, Mr. Thomas, and of course Ms. Lovelady, Mr. Ivy, and Mr. Ceballos are very well known in the agricultural community. I will tell you a story. Having this ag board has extremely helped us when the state comptroller does their property value study, and they come back to us saying that we're allowing too much exemption or expenses, I should say, for something like water. These members of this ag board, they get a hold of all the farmers that are out there and get us letters and get us cost, get us expenses so that they can help us defend what's in our report, in our ag report. So they are very extremely knowledgeable and extremely beneficial to the appraisal district. So my recommendation is John Spence, Bill Thomas, Leanne Lovelady, Lorenzo Ceballos, and Jim Ivy.
And Jim Ivy's relationship with Craig Ivy is?
Yes. They're Ivies.
There's a lot of hype.
You know,
Jimmy, how are they related?
Sometimes that's good.
that question too.
How are cousins? They're cousins.
Okay,
They're cousins.
I have a question. So who wrote this? They did?
Well, we do. Our agricultural department in residential, Crystal Pickett. You've met Crystal Pickett. She's the manager, and she has some of her appraisers are agricultural. They come up with a preliminary report. Then they present it to the Agriculture Advisory Board. They go over it. The Agriculture Advisory Board will make recommendations, and then they approve the report. We do a lot of research to get the price per row crop. What happens is it's on a schedule. As 1 year goes off, a new year comes on. So it rotates around. So they may have a very good year where their price per acre is high, but then they may have some bad years, and it will rotate around where then the bad years become more of a majority than the good years, or vice versa. So it is something we have to look at every year.
Do we track the reduction in arable land in El Paso County?
Yes, sir.
So we're seeing a substantial reduction.
Yes, sir.
A lot of farms are being turned into houses. I guess.
They're going to development.
All the way to Horizon. I mean,
Yes.
that's an important thing for each of our entities
Yes.
to know. I mean, so we're losing farmland. That's what
We
it
are.
is.
Which is actually a positive for the communities? 'Cause it's-
For property value purposes, it's positive because then we put the land on it, market, and of course, then you have the improvement. Agricultural has what they call a special valuation. It's not an exemption. It's a special valuation based on the type of crop. And so it is a lower price. Market may be here, but the ag value is here, and this is what they're taxed on. Once they sell it to a developer, there's a rollback, and it comes back up to market.
And it rolls back for 5 years, is it?
It just changed recently to 3 years. Yes, sir.
I have a question in regards to the roll tax. Have they provided any advice on that? Because I'm aware that what is the ruling on the state for as of now for the rollback tax on when they change the use for the property?
If the use changes, then it's a 3-year rollback to the current purchaser. Normally, during the purchase negotiations, the buyer and seller will determine who's going to cover that. It's normally the developer that covers that. And we have nothing to do with that. That's based on
Okay.
state law.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
Good questions, very good questions. Any other questions? Okay, guys.
You need a motion?
Yes.
I need a motion, yes.
And it's just Jim Ivy that's being replaced.
No, it's Greg Ivy.
I mean Craig with
Craig
Jim.
Ivy's being replaced with Jim
But
Ivy.
the rest are the same.
The rest of them, we're keeping the board the same. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I move that we keep them the same with the exception of Craig Ivy being replaced with Jim Ivy.
Okay. I have a motion by Mrs. York and a second by Mr. Avalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, board members.
Number 8, review and approval of the financial report, October, November, and December of 2021.
Good evening, Rosa Goldman, Chief Financial Officer. We are presenting the financial report for the months of October, November, and December 2021. The financial report contains the balance sheet, report of revenues, expenditures, and changes in cash balance, the investment report, and the note to the financial report. So keep in mind that these 3 months that we are reporting are the first months of the fiscal year, which starts in October. And the note to the financial report for October, we are noting that there was one line item, one account over budget, and it is the bonding and general insurance. It was over budget by $43.05, which is a very small amount. The reason is because we acquired a cyber liability policy, which we didn't have before, and we didn't put it on the budget. So the amount is very minimum. It's not going to affect the overall budget or anything else. For November, we didn't have any accounts over budget. And for December, we didn't either. But that particular account is going to stay like that over budget for the rest of the fiscal year because, it happened in October, which is the first month of the year. The encumbered funds litigation reserve is the $900,000 that the board had approved for us to place on that reserve. Nothing has been used, of course, because it's just 3 months of the fiscal year, but so it is there, the entire amount. If we need to use it, we will be, noting there how much money is used, but so far nothing is being used. So are there any questions for me?
As a reminder to the board, we will use the line item in the budget under litigation first. Once that's depleted, then we go into the reserves.
Any questions, board? No?
Thank you.
That was easy. Beautiful. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Berg. Do I have a second? Mr. Haggerty. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Thank you, Berg. Okay, now we have number 9, taxpayer liaison report.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Tracy Carter, Taxpayer Liaison Officer. I'd like to let you all know that I was very honored to be able to attend the TAD conference this year in Grapevine. Well, I did attend all the Board of Directors seminars. So included in your blue folder that you have in front of you, you will have the top 10 responsibilities of the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, criminal liability with every Central Appraisal District Board of Directors should know, and managing CAD finances. So this is very informative information and use this as a guide. This may help you all. And just to give you all a little information about the Appraisal Review Board, they will be in training February 28th through March 1st. And the ARB will be in session again to hear late protests, motions to correct, on March 14th through the 16th and March 29th through the 31st. Thank you, everyone. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have a really quick question. What are the numbers of the courts that are appointing people to the ARB?
That the judge is appointing? Well, she appoints 35 members.
I know, but which judge is it?
Judge Linda Chu.
So it's 327.
Yes.
So whoever takes over that seat is going to be appointing.
Well, it's the local administrative judge, and the judges appoint who the local administrative judge is. Ms. Chu, Honorable Linda Chu, is our third local administrative judge that we've had since this has happened. So once the election is over, whoever the judges choose to be their local administrator, then that will be.
So it's not necessarily the incumbent of the 327.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
This probably is a good time for me to say thank you to all of you for sending me as your representative to this TAD conference. It was incredibly informative. Tracy and I attended every one of the sessions, and we learned a lot about what our responsibilities are, what our limitations are. Obviously, I didn't learn about quorums, but other than that, I learned about everything else. But I want you to know that we have, in my opinion, probably one of the best running central appraisal districts in the state. We have, no question, we have the greatest chief appraiser of any organization in the entire state. But all in all, I have to tell you that it was a great learning experience, an opportunity to get to meet a lot of the people who work at the appraisal district and see their dedication and how much they care about this community, away from this community, and how they represent us. And I want you to know you can absolutely be assured you are represented with tremendous pride and dignity, and I appreciate all of you who were there with me and all of you for allowing me to attend. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Weir, for those
Thank you.
words of awesome words.
I threatened them if they didn't behave. No,
I
I'm
was
just
going to
kidding.
ask you how you liked it and how it was.
They behaved. Everybody behaved
Yes,
very
it
well.
did.
Because you were there.
We had a great time, and it really is a great opportunity to get to know in depth the people that are here on a day in, day out basis, and to see their commitment, to the appraisal district and to our chief appraiser, and how much they care about their job. It's not just, I just came from a hospital meeting where we have turnover all the time at Las Palmas del Sol and at Providence, same thing. It's so good to see an organization that is run where people love coming to work, and they come here with a renewed spirit every single day, and the work that they do on our behalf. They serve us. So when I said to this lady, thank you for your service, you can assure yourself these people have provided service to this community on a day in, day out basis through COVID, through probably one of the worst times ever. They showed up for work, and they kept coming in, even when it was difficult. And so
Yep.
we owe them a great debt of gratitude. And like I say, I got a much greater appreciation for what you do, and I thank you for inviting me to be there.
I'm glad you went. Mr. Berg met a lot of other chief appraisers from around the state, and heard where we rank with some of the big guns, and we're right up there. So it was very good.
I think
that
above
they-
them, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a little prejudiced. I think so
good.
too.
Awesome.
Dinah is a superstar there. I just want you all to know that. She's been president of TAD. She's gone on to the international organization as well. But more importantly, I want you to know that we should be so proud of her in the way that she runs this organization and how she represents us as a community throughout the state.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very nice. And it shows.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Number 10, Chief Appraiser's Report.
We'll keep it real simple. First thing, parking lot repairs done. I knew everybody would be asking, so that is done. We had some bad weather that kind of held off, and so we got that one done. We are finishing up our field work and working on our value and ratio testing. That's in process. Everything looks on schedule. Notices will be going out first part of April. I will tell you, we'll be doing a presentation from the departments in March, just a general presentation, but values are going up. I know you've seen it in the media, you've seen it in homes that are selling. So we are expecting a very busy year again this year. We had over 41,000 protests in 2021. We average around 22,000. So, you know, it was a big increase, and we're expecting even more. So we're getting ready for that. We will be meeting with all the entities, David Stone, myself, James Thompson, who's the Director of Evaluation. We normally go and visit with the entities with some preliminary estimated numbers right before the notices go out. We've contacted them. We do that in March, and they want to do conference calls, so we're going to be calling all the entities, giving them an idea of what percentage of increase, and giving them a heads up, you know, that we have a lot of protests, so there may be some big changes going on. And other than that, yes, sir.
Do you track the, I guess I call it the net amount between the protest amount and the actual settlement?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can keep a track.
And is that a percentage number that you shoot for, or?
Basically, what that is when we send out the notices, we have a preliminary roll that goes out to the taxing entities with all of those values. Then after 95% of all the protests are heard, we have the certified roll, and so that's the percentage of difference. That's the value decrease that will happen from the time we send out in April to July 25th.
And we send all the entities a spreadsheet going back to like 1993 or something that shows what the.
This is more of a management question, though. Do you and because that skews your numbers because you have the non-protested amounts there too. I was wondering if you track those that protest, the value of the protested amount versus the actual settle amount of those protests.
Sure.
Okay.
Now-
And that, you know, you could use that as a gauge every year.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We can gauge, we can look at to see out of, say, 100 protests, how many didn't show up, how many showed up. Out of those that showed up, did they get settled informally or formally, and what was the difference in value? Did they go to the A or B and have a formal settlement, and what was the difference in the value? What percentage received a change, and what percentage didn't? And we keep track of all of that.
Because you think that would help you with your
Yes, sir, we do.
evaluation.
Okay.
Thank you, Dana. 11 is executive session. We will not go under executive session today, so we'll jump to number 12, discussion and possible action regarding the previous list item.
Since we didn't have
We don't
one.
have anything in
We
executive.
didn't have one.
So we are done. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. York, second by
Second.
Shane Haggerty. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes.
Thank you, board
Good
members.
night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry again for my appearance. I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah, you only get
I'm
one.
going to the golf tournament.
Hey, we just want you
The
to show up.
time is 5:43.